Alrighty. Hello. We are actually a minute early. Woohoo! Welcome to Deconstructing Patriarchy. Season 1, Episode 2 is what we're talking about tonight, along with a plethora of a whole bunch of other that is going on in the zeitgeist. And I've got Paige with you here this week again.
My husband in the background.
And maybe her husband and a lot of cats walking through the background. So, okay, hold on. I have to get the chat going.
Yeah, there'll be a few cattails.
Okay, now hold on. I gotta go turn off the volume on YouTube. Maybe her husband and a lot of cats. Oh, cats walking through the background.
Oh wait, turn off the volume?
No. Because I was hearing. I have so many different screens open, y'all. This is insane. So I have software to pull Paige into my streaming software application on my computer. And then I have to have the live studio open. This is probably way more info than you need. And then I have to have the actual description up so I can get, because I could have put it somewhere else, but that would have been, too easy. But the description, because that has our agenda for the evening. And anyways, no one's joined us yet, so we're good.
Right. I'm gonna edit this after, later.
I tried last time. I don't think I'm at that level where they allow me to download and edit the lives for some reason, and it's just one more thing that I'm I'm doing so much already that I just forget it. I'm just
I would probably do the very beginning just because I'm like, I'm not like that.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of the times kind of like SpongeBob, where he's trying to take his driver's test or whatever, and Mrs. Puff is hounding him, and he's like, no, it's not ready yet.
Yeah. No, not yet. I'm sorry. I have a friend saying she wants to join on. Send me the link. Come on, friends. You should know how to get to my YouTube station by now.
I know.
Yes. I'm just
for you to be ready.
Drilling it into my friends' heads that they need to watch my stuff. I'm not gonna have any friends left. No, we're all good.
No.
Okay. All right.
No.
So Paige and I have decided after last week's trial run that we wanted to have a bit more of an intro and something to talk about before we jump into everything as we're waiting for people to join us, and an actual agenda. So we're not just kind of because we're both ADHD. I shouldn't say that. Sorry. I'm ADHD. I think she admits it too.
I don't know. I've never been officially diagnosed, but I can guess from all the Instagram TikTok therapy reels that I've watched. That's pretty much where I'm getting most of my information.
Exactly. Yeah. I've self-diagnosed, and that's okay. Self-diagnosis is okay.
Right.
Absolutely. All right. So sorry, I have all these different buttons to check in on. And I think it shows me. No, that's where it shows me. Okay. I remember. I have to remember where it shows. Okay. So I have to remember I'm one person watching this right now. So it's just me watching.
Right.
So no pressure. We're just going to slowly edge this thing up until we get more and more viewers live with us. Thank you for watching the replay. But yeah, we're going to be a little bit more structured tonight and try to stay on topic. I think we did last week as well, but we just didn't have as much structure, which is, it's good. I like structure, but then I also like to do a lot of tangents, which is why TikTok is so awesome for me. Okay, so let me give you a little rundown before we jump into our intro of what we're talking about tonight. So we're going to talk about the NFL halftime show as our intro. We've been talking about that for the last hour already. We are going to talk about season 2, and if you don't know who Mia is, she is your life coach, Chat GPT AI, and she's fabulous. And she has helped us tonight to create some questions and some awesome, script that Paige is going to read for us because it's awesome. And we want to hear what she has to say. That's really accumulating the videos and what Paige watched and then her own ideas. So we're going to do that. And then we will see what we have time for. We are going to talk about the SAVE Act, so definitely stay tuned for that. I put out a latest update in the Take Action February 2025 playlist. Honestly, it's not still a big deal, but it's not as high of a priority as some other things. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about, why taking action on these things that might not seem like a big priority or a big deal is a big deal because of something called the Overton window and Christian nationalism using that idea of taking little steps to get people acclimated to these radical things that they're now doing, and people saying like they're not that radical.
Right.
And then from there, let's see, we were going to talk about the white or elite woman as the pawn and what that means. If we get to it, we might not get to, we might tuck her out. We'll see how long we last. And then we were going to talk about the halftime Super Bowl show, which we're actually going to start off with. So yay, we have a second person on, which is probably my friend. So hello, friend. I won't mention your name in case you don't want to. Oh, she already dropped off. Okay, so yeah. All right, so Paige, halftime show with Kendrick Lamar.
I loved it. I was like, yes, the revolution needs to be televised for sure. I was all about it. I thought it was comical, like people who didn't like it, like why they didn't like it. It just kind of was just, I mean, how do I explain it? It was a little eye-opening, but at the same time, like I wasn't surprised. Let's see, what are your thoughts, Holly?
So many, y'all. So Paige sent me something from Threads that was kind of like a quick recap. And I am a Chiefs or have been a Chiefs fan. Now I'm kind of like wobbling in this zone of like, do I really want to support? Oh, I just froze. Can you still hear me? Okay. Do I really want to support a team that is turning up to be so MAGA? Do I really want to support a team do I want to support the NFL? And anyways, that's besides the point. So you have to imagine I'm sitting in this bar. There's like everybody in the bar is there to watch the Super Bowl. And a huge majority of us are Chiefs fans because we've been going to this bar all season. I would say a good 50%, if not more, of people cheered when Trump was on the screen. And I have all of this that I just kind of mentioned in the back of my mind as I'm watching this halftime show. And the moment I saw Samuel L. Jackson as Uncle Sam, I just got the chills. I started hooting and hollering and saying, F yes. I'm not into rap. Like when I'm a DJ, I DJ for these spaces called Ecstatic Dance. And I will tell people when they ask me what I'm into, I'm like, I am into so much. Like I love EDM. I love big orchestra music. Like I will use almost everything when I'm DJing except rap. Like that will be rap is just not my thing. And going back and watching it the second time, and I was going to pull it on for us to watch it together and but I didn't want to get like copyright violated or whatever. So I said, okay, I'll just not do it. We'll just talk about it and I'll figure out how to do that next time. I'm still learning, y'all. I'm still new to this. And comparing my two experiences, because I couldn't really understand what he was saying, trying to watch it, trying to pull in all the visual. And then I'm still like, I was really out of it on Sunday because I was so upset about everything I saw going on Fox News and all this stuff. And once my mind goes on to something, I can't really get off of it. But I got the chills many, many times. And many, many times I was like, I so want to be Black right now. I want to be, and I apologize if that's offensive to anyone, but I have felt so much more connected a lot of times to the Black community than I do to my white community, just because of waking up to be a woman in patriarchy and realizing what I've had to go through. And I don't have any proof of this, but I do think like my grandpa was part of the Ku Klux Klan and he was racist and I just never understood it. And it makes me so violently angry to think about what has been done to other people in the name of freedom, in the name of patriarchy, in the name of capitalism. And so to see all of these Black souls, Black men, powerful, dancing, which is something that has been shamed in the, I would say for white men until more recently, right? Like dancing is not something that men are supposed to do even anymore. So like all of this so I was just like chills. Like there was something big about the halftime show on Sunday. I think
Kevin Bacon would think differently. I think he would definitely be like, no, I think you're wrong.
About the dancing?
And dancing. So Kevin Bacon would think differently.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Kevin Bacon, yeah. Okay. Footloose guy, right? So all of that is going, and like I didn't pick up that it was a white American flag. Like, how obvious is that now that I look back at it?
Yeah.
But I just picked up the sense that this is like I heard the word revolution, be humble, sit down, be humble, sit down, be humble, sit down. Like, and you could just like, even without understanding the words, I could understand that this was something big. Like this was big. So when I was rewatching it, the things that came to me, and if you stick with me and watch Deconstructing Patriarchy Foundations of season 1, we're going to get into talking about how history and myth are these like they're in bed together, and we can't pull them apart, and we can't tell what's history half the time and what's myth.
Right.
And then I'm going to talk about in the next video after that, how do we even understand what a myth is? And you can't be in a logical mind when you're in myth. So stay with me. There's a parallel. What came to me, and I'm having a new appreciation for rap now through this, is that I can't use my rational mind to understand rap. You can't like sit there and look at the words and understand it. You got to get back, get out of your head, get into the feeling of what that myth is saying through rap. And then I started thinking about,
But it's poetry in a way.
It's poetry in a ways, right? And it's from the Black African, slavery movement. And you think about Black hymnals and Black gospel music, that was the precursor to all of this. And how just, it's just so rich, because that movement through their music is how they have stayed strong and thrive inside of patriarchy. And so I think that that's the application for us, is like, when we start to look at myths, don't use your head. You've got to get out of your head to understand these myths and how they're affecting us in this day and age and what they're telling us. But B, who else has been struggling against patriarchy that we can look at to understand how they have moved through patriarchy? Not to say that that's exactly what we need to do ourselves, maybe as white women, because we're 2 white women, but like, there's seeds for us to see, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's where I got excited as I was rewatching it. I was like, oh my gosh, here's the application. And so here was another application. Sorry, I can talk about this stuff forever. That's probably why I'm doing this. But in these first 2 episodes, I think I've said this a couple times, where I've said, what we're doing is we're learning this structure that's invisible, this ideology that has built our society, not the events themselves, but the ideology behind those events, so that we can see that lens, take it off, look at history through a wider lens, and then rewrite history.
Right.
And Uncle Sam coming out as a Black man, nailed it. That is the application. That's what I'm talking about, because now we have a different story in the zeitgeist of America.
Right.
As white people.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think it was really, really powerful that he came out, and I thought everything he said was spot on. I thought the message overall was really powerful, and I thought it was really interesting how the field looked like the Squid Game arena, and it was supposed to represent the rich against the poor, and that's just what we're going on right now. And there's a lot of symbolism in there to unpack, and I just think it was hilarious how it just flew by so many people's heads. I mean, there was also a little bit of distortion if you were watching it on Fox News versus like being able to watch it live after. And there was also, I thought was interesting, there was somebody who was waving like a Palestinian flag who was trying to protest. He was carried out by security. I thought that was really sad, and it's ridiculous. And anyway, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Go ahead. You want to share any more that you feel comfortable with?
Oh, I mean, I'm good.
Okay.
I'll
okay.
You.
Yeah. So, deconstructing patriarchy, we're not necessarily here to talk about the culture wars. We're not here to talk about politics per se. But because politics is the structure that society is structured under or through, it's going to touch everything. So we've got to talk about these things. And because I'm trying to help you see this invisible structure by exposing it more and more and more, we've got to talk about these things and talk about how, you know, how, and I don't understand this one, so it's not one we're going to get into tonight, but how, of course, as an ex-Christian, I understand there's a lot of history between the Christians and the Jewish, and Christians have, you know, at first blamed the Jewish people for Jesus's death, and then now they're in favor of, you know, saving them and killing all the Palestinians and doing everywhere else, you know, so there's a lot there. And I think we would need to have a discussion offline first to make sure that we're definitely, I don't necessarily want to say PC, but walking that tightrope of being respectful to everybody. Because first and foremost, we don't ever, like, I love this from the new evangelicals, we don't necessarily ever want to dehumanize anyone.
No.
That is not our goal, even though I think some people are not acting as humans. And so I think there's a difference. But this is a lot of stuff. So this is all the kind of stuff that we've got to get used to talking about with. And so we'll have to remember to talk about this more offline before we do it online.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so good to try to like get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's just kind of been my motto in life.
Mm-hmm. That was one of my favorite themes I would do as a DJ instructor, because I would host these dances. We did freeform movement, and that was a theme. Like, how do we get comfortable in the uncomfortableness of life? Mm-hmm. And growing and challenging ourselves when we're wrong. Like, I had to go on TikTok to 1,500 people and be like, I got something wrong. And the reason you're following me now is because I was preaching this, and now I have to admit that I got it wrong. And that's human. And
it happens. Yeah.
It happens, especially in this environment. Okay, so we are 15 minutes in. We are going to do our somatic exercise. Yay! And I'm going to add a little something in. So if you're not familiar with what somatic is, if you have not watched any of my other videos, my other lives, or my other updates from Take Action 2025, somatic means of the body. And a somatic exercise means it's a body exercise. It's a very fancy sounding word for something that's really pretty basic. But somatic somatic exercise in the sense is, it's not about the physical exertion of working out, but it's about how do we release some of the excess energy perhaps that's coming into our bodies. So one of the ways I always describe trauma to people when I was teaching more often was that trauma was nothing more than excess energy coming into the body. So it could be the alarm clock in the morning going off. It could be the door slamming. It could be your husband or your kids yelling, or the dog barking. It could be turning on TikTok and being like, I told you, right? Like, all of that energy is constantly coming into us. And instead of doing what animals do, which is shake it off when they have excess energy coming into their system, we just kind of sit there and absorb it. Like sitting in a movie theater and the guns going off, we're just sitting there like this. We're just absorbing that energy, and we're not moving it through our system. So then it gets stuck in our system. And this is what creates I would say the tension and the apprehension and the anxiety, because the body can't release that energy properly. And I just had another train of thought that I lost, but maybe it'll come back to me. But yeah, like being able to have a way to actually somatically get that energy moving and out of us, so that people, you know, we need to breathe right now. Breathing is a big thing, right? Like people in yoga, representatives are talking. I mean, everybody's talking about take a breath, take a breath. But if you have all of this trauma and anxiety coming at you and sitting in your body, taking a breath is going to be really difficult. So doing a somatic exercise like we're going to do will help. The one we're going to do is called the somatic shake. It's the one I start with everybody with. I love it. I do it at the beginning of every session that I'm going to teach more somatic exercises with, because it helps to reset the nervous system in the quickest way that I've ever seen. And it helps ground you. If you do enough of these somatic exercises and you know how to use them, they can actually take you to altered states, especially when you have big booming music like I used to do in the DJ. So I was actually going to try this. Oh, that's what I was going to do. I have so many things I was going to try. I was going to try to play the trailer music that I use for my YouTube videos, because it's downloaded from YouTube, so it shouldn't get us like shut off. Because if you use something that YouTube doesn't like, then they'll basically show the visual, but not show any of the audio for the rest of the time. So the somatic shake, you're going to stand, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to demo it for a second, and then we'll turn the music on and just go. I typically ask people to be barefoot, so I'm going to take my boots off. I'm going to put my yoga mat down. I forgot to do that before. And you want to stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. So not like your shoulders aren't way out here. They're here. That's where your hips are. You're going to keep your knees soft, all your joints soft. If you have any joint issues, then maybe just watch and see if there's something that your body can handle. Listen to your body always, not me, first and foremost. I am not here to be your boss or save you or tell you, like dictate you what to do. You're always at choice. Always, always, always. And the action is we're going to lift up on our toes and drop down on our heels. And we want to drop down with just enough force that it's going to send this energy up the spine. So the spine starts to vibrate a little bit and it's going to start to like release some energy. And then just let the energy go wherever it wants. Let it go through your arms. Let it go through your head. Let it go through your hips. Follow the flow of wherever that energy wants to go. So I like tribal music because, especially as women, we need to move our hips. And you all can hear that I'm still really sick, but I had a little bit of a rage tribal, somatic session yesterday. And it really did fucking break up a lot of the shit in my body and made me feel, I would say, 50% better. So our emotions, our illnesses are all tied together. Like that's the wisdom of the Chinese medicine. We can't separate them. And so when you don't move, when you're sitting there doom scrolling all day long, your emotions are going to follow. Right. So if we want our emotions to be in something else, we got to get our body into something else. It's not necessarily, you can do it with the mind. There's this loop between the mind and the body. So you can do it with either one, but sometimes it's easier to do it with the body. So that's why they say get up and move if you're feeling like depressed and stuff. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to shampoo our hair as we shake it off. Okay. So there's all these proprioceptors on our head that proprioceptors are basically, they're pulling in the energy, right? So now we're kind of like jumbling all of those messages of all of the energy coming into us, like we're a big antenna. And it's just going to feel good. Like getting your hair massaged or your head massaged is usually like when you go to get a salon or massage, it's always my favorite part. I learned something a couple summers ago where if you massage your head for like 10 minutes, just doing this, if you can't go to sleep, like it should help you sleep better. So it's all connected, y'all. Any questions, Paige?
I knew about doing it for hair growth, but I did not think about doing it for all of that jazz.
You could put castor oil and then really.
I did do that. I use rosemary oil on my hair weekly. I should be doing it daily, but I do get my hair to start.
No shoulds. Okay, so I'm going to get up and switch my camera and get my yoga mat down.
I'm going to, how do I do it? If I want to turn camera off, I do like that.
That's absolutely fine. I will be the unusual weirdo on YouTube. Again, I'm going to give you, so my yoga mat is doubled just to give my joints a little bit more cushion. I'm going to give you a frontal view of what it looks like. Let me, overhead light is really bright. So let me turn that off for a second. You can probably see me better. And I know you can't really see my feet, but again, the feet are just coming up ever so slightly and down. And then there's even points where I don't even feel my feet coming off the ground, but you'll still see me shaking. So it just looks like Taylor Swift. I know everybody loves her right now.
Shake it off.
And shake it off. Okay, so you just start with the up and down motion. Get comfortable with that. And you'll feel like about 10 to 20, 30 seconds in, you might actually feel your chest relax a little bit and you're able to take in more breath. So that's there for me. And then, you can watch me or keep your eyes on me a little bit during the song and you'll just see, I'll start to do stuff like the head thing. I'll start to shake it off. I'll shake the breast. I'll shake the hips. As women, it's so important to be moving our hips. That's where we keep a lot. Okay, so Paige, let me know if you can hear this music.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, okay. I can hear it.
All right,
it is
go. It's about nice 3 or 4 minutes long. Here's the back look.
I'm ready.
Take breaks when you need them. Take breaks when you need them. Don't feel like you have to go the whole time.
Definitely feel knees.
Be free with your breath too. If you want to do a lion's breath, or you want to scream, you're in your room by yourself, you're not on YouTube like me. Yesterday, y'all, I was screaming. I had so much rage in me. And then I felt better.
That is a calf workout.
Woo! Just follow what your body wants to do. Don't think about it. Just let your body think. If you want to touch your body, it's your body. You're in your privacy. Let your body know that you're here. You're present. You're okay. I love touching my middle section. I love touching up here. I will do that on the dance floor. My back, my bum, all the way down the legs, and even pounding. Wake up all the proprioceptors. Swimmers, we do this a lot before our swim meets or actual event. And just come to a pause. We're going to stop, whatever that is. I don't know what that is, y'all. Just go ahead and stop, though. Oh, that's bad music. Just stand there, feet together or feet hip width apart. Take a deep breath or two. See if you can hold the breath in. If you know how to do a box breath, now is a great time to do a box breath. If you don't, think of the breath in 4 parts. The breath in, the pause between, the breath out, the pause between. And then you can take a number like 2 and make each one 2 counts. And when you're ready, go ahead and come back to your seat. Paige, how do you feel?
Oh, a lot better. Not as anxious. I get a lot of anxiety doing this. I shouldn't. I don't know why I do.
Well, because this lives on the internet forever. I mean, there's no one on with us right now. It's just us.
No.
They probably saw me touching me and myself and be like, what's she doing? But we are going to do that at the beginning. And hopefully, if I remember the end of every live, just so I'm not, getting everything all excited again, that, as we talk about all these heavy, heavy themes. Right. Especially since this is at night, we want to be able to sleep.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how people watch true crime stuff before they go to bed. I can never. I would get nightmares.
Yeah, I can't either.
I have to watch Happy
Go Zen right now. I don't know if I can talk anymore. Okay. All right. But let's go ahead. I think we're on to talking about our episode 2, y'all. Which was, what was the title? Do you remember? I remember, but.
Oh, do I remember?
Or anybody that's watching this afterwards? Because there's no one out
here. Good. I remember. It is your live video. That is what it's called. Deconstructing.
No, I meant the actual name of episode 2.
Episode 2.
The one that you just watched today.
Oh, yes. No, you sent it to me and I should know. I looked at you. I did not look at the title.
That's okay. It's okay. So we're talking about, sorry, I'm just pouring myself some more tea. Let me get back on screen here. Just having a chat with my girlfriend about these heavy topics. Okay, so we're talking about, is it natural order? Is it in our DNA for men to lead, for them to dominate, and women to be submissive?
Oh, I see. Here we go.
So Paige was able to watch this video today, and she chatted with Mia, our life coach, which I think is the best model of AI that I've seen so far. I have to be honest.
Well,
yeah, like she's psychologically advanced, I would say.
Right. See, so we're diving into a very interesting conversation about male dominance actually in our DNA. Is it a life, or is it actually in our DNA, or is it just a long-running social scam? Spoiler alert, I have thoughts.
All right. So if you watched the episode, if you have not, please go back and do so. Please actually watch episode 1A through 1D first, then watch episode 2, because these build on each other. You will know that I do not hold to the "you're being in me" specific science that can point to one direction or the other. So
okay,
that is what I shared in the episode. But your overall thoughts of the episode, I guess, first, and then we can jump into chimpanzees versus bonobos.
Oh, bonobos. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that you had a TED Talk within the video. I thought, it made me kind of want to go and research the TED Talk. And then I thought that I'm trying to think or remember exactly everything, but yeah, for the most part, I thought it was interesting how no one really knows anything about bonobos. Like, everyone has heard of chimpanzees, but no one's heard of those. And I remember distinctly just learning about them at the Fort Worth Zoo, because I'm a huge animal freak. I love animals, and so I have a season pass to the Fort Worth Zoo, and so yeah, I remember seeing them there. But other than that, it seems like not a lot of people know about them.
Yeah, I'm just checking the episode again to see if I put the link to the TED Talk. I think I put it in a card but I don't see it actually. No, I did. It is. There's a link in the description of episode 2 to that TED Talk, which, thank you for reminding me, because I definitely wanted to go back and finish watching. I watched up until a certain, halfway through, just where she started talking more about other stuff. Right. So your question for me was, why do you think scientists focus so much more on chimpanzees and barely talk about bonobos? I'm going to get that right by the end of this time. Right. When they study human behavior. And there is a multiple answer to this one, of course. If you've watched episode 1 or 2 at this point, but especially episode 1, all 4 of them are the full episode. So the full episode was pretty meaty, so I broke it down into the 4 points and made 4 separate episodes, and then added more actual application, I guess you would say, into each of those episodes, so you could really deep dive into each of those points. Mm-hmm. But in episode 1B, I talk about the 10 steps that patriarchy took to embed the ideology into our cultural zeitgeist through our stories, our history, our cultural creation myths, in order to get us to where we are today. So we have to understand that is at the foundation of everything we're seeing in the world today. And so that's really the answer, is because this shit got embedded over the course of 2,500 years, Aristotle, there's our favorite man again, and Plato and Socrates and all these men. So let me give you the timeline. Let me back up. So 2,500 years to actually anchor in the 10 ideologies. It wasn't an overnight process, so getting out, we shouldn't expect it to be overnight either.
Right.
It started about 3,100 BCE.
Okay.
2,500 years went to 600 BCE. From what I remember in my research, a lot of the philosophers started coming around that time. A lot of the philosophers that have trickled down into modern day age. So Socrates, I think, was one of the earlier ones, then Plato, then Aristotle. So you have to remember that they didn't have anthropology, sociology. They didn't know how to carbon date. They didn't have written history pre-patriarchy. So all they had was really whatever they had around them that they were experiencing, and maybe some stuff that people wrote down in places like, you know, the big library in Alexandria that got burnt down in Egypt, and, you know, they had stuff, but it was all during patriarchy that they're learning from. So they're looking around the world, and all they're seeing is that men dominate and women are submissive, and that there's some men that are higher up in the class system and some are not. But that's because that patriarchy had been building and then established for 2,500 years, and by the time they came around, for another couple hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
So no one challenged that, because that was all they experienced. That was there. Like, they thought that that's how God had ordained things. And so about that time is when you have the biblical writers. If I'm getting my dates right, I think some of the earliest Old Testament was written maybe around 1500. So still 1500 BCE, 3100 BCE, that's a difference of 1600 years. So patriarchy had been going on for 1600 years before the, you know, creation myth of Genesis started. So all that's all they're seeing. So if you listen to people talk about Genesis and how it got written down, like, there's actually 2 or 3 different, like, interpretations, not interpretations, what do they call them? I'm totally, like, I have so much information in my head, y'all, like, I have to pull it out there.
Like, point of view?
No.
Point of view?
There's 2 different creation myths in Genesis, right? So we know that, right? So one is maybe a more ancient, older, I shouldn't say ancient, versus the other. I can't remember exactly what it is I'm trying to pull out, but maybe it'll come to me. But basically, these were oral tradition stories, right? So you have an oral tradition story from, you know, Timbuktu over here, and you have a B version of it over in Heidi Didy. I'm just making
kind of like the game Telephone, where things kind of just get jumbled up.
Right. So the rabbis that came together to write the story down, remember, they've already been living in patriarchy for about 1600 years. They don't know that, but we know that now. Right. And they're just assuming that this is like what happened. And that's why we still see traces of, like, the story of Inanna. Hello.
Like, why you do that to me?
So Inanna shows up in the Bible as Ashtoreth or Ashtar. The cults of Ashtoreth, the cults of Ashtar in the Old Testament, that's Inanna. Inanna's husband shows up in Dumuzi is the name in Sumer. So you have to remember, Sumer also is where Abraham, who is the patriarch of the Bible.
Right.
Abraham is from where Inanna's story is from. So he grew up hearing these stories of Inanna, and you can trace Inanna. And if you go to my Substack today, I released, I'm doing a personal exposition into, like, what the ideas of death is in my own life and how that relates to, really, however a culture views death is how they're going to live life. So I'm not going to give too much away, but go to the Substack, read the Substack. It's phenomenal. Like, as I'm pulling this together, I wanted to do a book on this subject because it's so powerful.
Right.
But however they view life, death is how they view life. So you can see stories of Inanna's. Do you know Inanna? Do you know her story?
No, I'm not really familiar.
Okay, so you have to go read my Substack. So let me just, like, maybe pull that out.
I need to actually download Substack. I don't think I've never had it before.
Okay.
I do not have.
Let me I think it's not a very long part, so let me go to the post. Oh, and read it. I'm gonna go behind the scenes to do it because it's not pulling up fast enough for me. I gotta pin it still. Let's see. Pin. So the name of the post I'm talking about, y'all, is From Fear to the Pregnant Void, My Journey to Reclaim Death's True Story, How Patriarchy Stole the Feminine Power of Cyclical Life, and Why That Reclaiming It Matters. So I'm going to scroll down to the story of Inanna, the ancient goddess who walked into death. Inanna, an ancient goddess predating the Bible by about 1,000 to 2,000 years, depending on, you know, what part of the Bible we're looking at, held dominion over both earth and heavens. But she wanted more. She sought to rule the underworld too, not as a passive princess, but as a queen who ruled her own fate. Unlike Jesus, who was sent to die, Inanna chose her descent. To reach the underworld, she had to pass through 7 gates, stripping herself of some power symbols at each one: her crown, her robes, her scepter. By the time she reached her twin sister, Ereshkigal, the dark, grieving, bleeding aspect of herself, she stood naked and humbled. And then Ereshkigal killed her. She hung her on a meat hook to rot. For 3 days and 3 nights, she remained there. But before she left, Inanna had prepared. She had sent a servant with instructions. If she did not return, send for help. And so after 3 days, she had helped to be resurrected, reborn back into life. She returned to the living, not as the same Inanna, but as one who had faced death, made peace with it, and emerged reborn. So this goes on more to give you more of the symbology between the two.
Right. What is the culture or country of origin of the mythology?
So that's why. So sorry, I thought you knew the story of Inanna. So Inanna is from Sumer. If you read Genesis, you will see that Abram is from the place of Sumer. They came from the same place. So this is how oral tradition stories worked. They would spread because people were nomadic and would move from one place to another. So
versus actually writing things down.
Because they didn't have writing pre-patriarchy, right? So we don't know for sure if patriarchy created writing. Some people are like, if you don't want patriarchy, then you don't want to have your advancements. Well, that's not true. We would have still advanced, but we probably would have done it. And one of a different series of books that I'm writing will explore this more, fiction book. But we probably would have advanced more in line with nature and our nature of being cyclical beings than we would have done what we did, because we had the story of death that we have, which comes from this patriarchy ideology that we are. So it's all tied together. So that's what I'm saying. When you start to understand these 10 steps of how we got into patriarchy, the ideology, you can look at the story of Inanna and see the weaving that created the story of Jesus, see what's different between the two. So, they both were in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. They both hung on something, a meat hook, the cross. Right? They were both resurrected. Inanna was a heroine's journey, which means a heroine can be male or female, but a heroine is collaborative, community-focused, collaboration, community, all the C words. I keep forgetting them, but they're all the C words. So that's more of the feminine aspect of being
the good C words.
The good C words. And then Jesus' story was a story of a hero. And a hero.
I see the hero's journey.
Yeah, the hero's journey is about getting a task, leaving home, doing it alone, coming back victorious, and everybody celebrating just that one fucking person. Where Inanna comes back to life, and everybody was grieving for her except her husband. So that's the other thing. We don't have time to get into it tonight because we're already at 7:45. But when you start to look at the story of Inanna, I love it so much because it was written down about 1,000 to 2,000 years before any of the Bible was written down, y'all. So it predates the Bible at least by 1,000 years. That means it was written down around 2500 BCE. When did patriarchy start? Do you remember the date I gave you? I don't feel bad if you don't.
Good. I'm so bad.
It's okay.
I'm remembering things that
people,
I don't.
You need to have a pen and paper when you listen to me. I do this on TikTok. I need to do this on
I
YouTube.
didn't have one last time. I don't have one.
Have a pen
but I
and
have
paper.
phone.
But also,
my phone as hard as you guys.
Just listen to these videos over and over and over again, because I guarantee you'll find something new each time that's going to expand your horizons, your consciousness, your understanding, and you're going to be like, oh, I see it. I'm listening to my own voice so much, I'm hating it, but god damn it, I am getting this stuff even more, and it's getting easier and easier and easier to see it so easy, so fast. So Inanna, 2500 BCE.
Okay.
Started patriarchy about 3100 BCE.
3100 BCE.
So we've got about 600 years a difference. So something that I learned really through Sue Monk Kidd's book, The Dance of the Dissonant Daughter, I have all my books here, is when we're looking at myths, there's the myth that came to us in patriarchy, but that probably came from an oral story pre-patriarchy. And we see that in Anana. And I'm not going to go into that now. I go into it a little bit on my Substack if people want to go read that. But it really is one of those stories where we can start to see what Gerda Lerner is talking about in her book, The Creation of Patriarchy. Where's my copy? The Creation, where this is a 2,500-year process. So the story of Anana, about 600 years in. So there's still a powerful queen as a goddess, y'all.
In Atlantis?
No, in Sumer.
Oh, I thought that's what you said. Okay, never mind.
It might be the streaming. So no, a powerful queen in society, like a powerful queen as a goddess is what I said.
Oh, I don't know what I thought you heard. I am so sorry.
Okay. And so, oh my gosh, there's just, and this is why I had to break it down into so many videos, because there's just so much that I'm like swimming in constantly, and I'm like trying to figure out how to put it together for people to make sense. So I'm hoping I'm doing that. We'll see by the end of the series if people are starting to get, what I hope they're getting from this series.
Right.
So to go back to your first question, the reason they focus more on this is because Aristotle was looking back and didn't see anything else. So he just took it as natural order that women were submissive and men were leaders. That got built. So people like Aristotle was not a medical doctor.
Yeah, for sure.
For some reason, like his information started pouring into the little bit of medical field that was there. You get into, and we can watch that episode or that little if we feel like we want to go really overboard here. But I have a clip from The Great Courses, which talks about a lot of different things over history. And it's Sex in the Middle Ages is the name of the great course that I'm watching. And it talks about how the medical doctors in the Middle Ages were building their practice off of Aristotle's philosophy of women and men and gender. And so a lot of our science, fast forward, is still built off of, you just keep tracing it back. It's based off of Aristotle and Socrates and their whole, Plato, all of them, their ideology that men were norm. That's all. Right. And men were the norm.
I think right here in my research, it's saying that he said that women were deformed men.
Yeah. So
men.
So patriarchy made men the norm. And the easier way to remember it is this. Patriarchy made men the norm and everything else the deviant. So our science looks at women's bodies and doesn't see a perfect, beautiful woman's body. They see something that's a deviant from the norm. And they're not consciously doing this, I don't think. And so the feminist movement actually did us a little bit from our experience. I don't know if this was their intention because I haven't studied it that deeply, but our experience of the feminist movement is instead of coming up and saying, hey, because the creation of patriarchy had not been written yet, and we didn't know that we lived in something else, and we didn't know anything than natural order back then, instead of making women their own norm against themselves, they tried to say, hey, the norm is over here. We're the deviant, but we want to be equal to the norm. If you just look at that as an equation, the norm can never be, the deviant can never be equal to the norm. But medical science damn well is trying to make women's bodies men's bodies by taking away our cycles, by taking away the things that make women women.
Right. That makes a lot. It goes back to, oh my gosh, I was going to say something and I totally lost my train of thought. Never mind, continue. I totally forgot my train of thought.
So if you look at how science, so that's just medical science, but all of science really is still like Darwinism. And in her first chapter, she goes into this. Darwinism is based off of Aristotle's thoughts. So nobody questioned Aristotle's thoughts. That's really what happened. And then everybody built off of that shit. And that's why science doesn't look at the bonobos, because in their mind, we are the chimpanzees. That is their reality. Right? So there is some science, if you want to write this one down, Untrue by Wednesday Martin. all the myths that we believe about women's sexuality and what the new science can tell us to set us free. I think that's the subtitle. It's pretty long. But if you just get Untrue and Wednesday Martin, that'll get you to the book. You have it in your Libby now because we talked about it earlier. But for everybody else watching the replay, she taught, like, her first couple chapters, she dives into this a lot because of how powerful the bonobos. So if you watched episode 2, you saw that TED Talk where she shows the human line and how it went off, and then you have the chimpanzees and the bonobos, and they're both basically equal in DNA to us. Right.
But yet look at the chimpanzees because they represent more of a patriarchal society versus like the bonobos were more of a matriarchal society.
Well, again, because science is built on Aristotle's belief. So if I'm a scientist, I mean, like, this goes back to the question I asked you earlier this week, right? Like, when did you start to wake up to realize that history was all about men and only a certain select men, and that women were missing, and that women weren't part of this, and women weren't part of, like, I was reading The Dance with the Dissonant Daughter when it finally dawned on me. I'm like 36 at this point or whatever, 12 years ago.
Well, I think I realized it in a way, but like, I've always known that the victor always determines the outcome or determines the narrative pretty much. That's what it is. It doesn't, I mean, but I've just realized, I guess, within the last few years how embedded it is into everything. It's ingrained into everything in our, you know, thoughts, our advertising, just the way, like, our unconscious bias, all sorts of stuff.
Right. But we don't, like, yeah, we might know that consciously, but we don't follow that thought and ask the questions that should start popping up. Like, well, what does that mean about what I've been told about history? Like, what's missing? What's not included? Why did they have any biases when they told it? How much of the story is actually true? And how do we prove what's true versus myth? Right. So, like, those, like, so you had a question, maybe it's the next one down, where I was like, well, that's a thought stopping cliche basically, and we'll get into what that is with the next question. But imagine you're a male, because most scientists up until more recent times have been men, right? And you see the world through your male view, and you've been taught that we always put men first. So this is one of my tools and one of my videos that I said, like, instead of going men and women, start saying women and men. Instead of saying brothers and sisters, say women and sisters and brothers, right? Like, start putting the female first, the feminine version.
Yeah, the English language is all about subliminal domination, like patriarchal domination for sure.
Right, but we don't realize that until someone brings it to our consciousness, and then you start thinking about it, and then you start thinking about, oh my God, I am unconsciously always putting men first because I talk that way. So I'm always never seeing myself. Like, I woke up to realize when I was reading The Dance of the Dissonant Daughter, oh yeah, I don't see myself in this God. I don't see myself in this Jesus. I'm always having to translate he in the Bible to she, but I don't actually translate it because I haven't been made aware that I'm living as a female as if I'm a male.
Right. It seems like only men who are written by women are the ones that actually go out of their way to put their woman first, and like they come second, or they know they should like care about their partner and treat each other, you know, equally versus, you know, just expecting their partner just to take care of them all the time.
Yeah, because we know what it's like to not be put in that position, right? So imagine you're a boy that grows up to be a man who has lived in a world that always talks about the he, that's always a male God. Like, you're not going to stop. You're going to have some really powerful influences, probably from some really powerful females, to stop and think like, oh, there might be a different way to see the world than how the common language makes the world. Right? So both of these books, it's a whole nother topic. I mean, this is why all my videos are getting so long, because there's so much to talk about. Both of these books talk about the right to name the world. And the right to name the world was given to the men. So the men wrote the world in their language. So we don't often have language as females to talk about what we experience. We have to try to put it, it's like we've just landed on the shores of France and we speak only English. And now we're trying to, describe what it was like to come across the Atlantic Ocean with English to a French person. They're not going to understand us. We're not going to understand them, right? So that's a little bit of what's happening between males and females, right? We don't speak their language. Like, we speak their language actually, but they don't speak ours. And we don't have a language to speak our own language. So people grow up in this, and women, even I'm talking to, women that are older than me, and they're maybe feminist, but they're not feminist in the version of the creation of patriarchy. They're all about equality, but they don't understand that equality is actually not what we want. It's
not different than equity, right?
We are equal in value. Okay. We're not equal in body, and that's where it really, in body and soul. Our souls, our psychosomatic experience of the world is different because we have different bodies.
Okay.
And so we want to be our own norm. Again, patriarchy made men as norm. We want to be not equal to that norm. We want to be our own norm. And to go even a step further, I would say the world needs to return to the women as norm, where we go off the lunar cycle, which is my Substack from last week, and we slow things down, because capitalism is literally killing us and it's killing the planet, and we can't maintain it. Right? So if we were to return to the female cycle, the lunar cycle, the 28-day, 29-day, and have more rest time built into our society, things would go differently. If we didn't have a GDP that says, go, 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 you have to grow year after year after year, if we created something different than the GDP, we would create a new world. Like, so these are little things that I'm seeing as I'm working with this material that we could start doing now, even the little steps. Okay, so hopefully that helps. So again, the reason scientists don't look at bonobos is because they have been trained to see the natural order as natural order. Mm-hmm. And until somebody like Wednesday Martin comes along and says, hey, and there's all these other female scientists that are saying, hey, there's the bonobos to look at as well. We're not like, we're not going to get into this conversation, but I always felt like a deviant as a female because I really liked the SEO. I liked it. Right? Like, I liked it, and I thought, oh my God, if I start having that, this is why Christianity got me, because it actually gave me a reason to shut everything down. If I start having it, I knew I was going to go, be the Mary Magdalene of the Bible instead of the Mary, Mother Mary. So I shut it down. And then I read Wednesday Martin's book and learned, no, the new science that's not widely known yet, but it's out there, starting to make its way in the zeitgeist, is that women are more sexual than men. Like, on average, we like it more than men. But we've been told all these myths that are wrong. So then you bump up against this myth and you think the myth is true because you think it's science, you think it's fact, when it's not. But you bump up against it, and instead of questioning if this is true or not, you question yourself. You make yourself feel guilty to get back in line to follow the myth. And
that makes sense. I wish I could actually see the data. I really want to see the research on. I'm sure there is research.
Yeah, Wednesday Martin's book. That's why I mentioned it, because it's in that book.
Oh, okay, sweet.
Yeah, it's all about the science that will set you free from understanding that most of our sexual understanding of women is wrong.
When did they do these studies?
I mean, her book, I read it in 2019, so within the last 10 years. And it was on the bonobos. They use a lot of the bonobos.
I definitely know that there's not enough studies in general on women when it comes to drugs and just medical testing in general. That's why there's so much different data, and why women experience a lot of different side effects than women when it comes to certain prescription drugs. It's kind of insane.
Because we weren't included in medical
testing
research until 1993. 1993, you all. That was 32 years ago is when they finally put women into drug testing.
Yeah, that's really, really sad. I mean, I get I don't know, why some women and children might not be included, but I don't know. On the other hand, if you're volunteering for it and like that's what you want to do and you consent, then you should be able to.
It's not because of the sexism. It was because they didn't want to deal with having to understand these drugs in relation to our hormones and how much our hormones change every year.
Okay.
But when you talk to some scientists, they're like, you have a female walk in and give me a hormone swab, I can tell you exactly where she is in her cycle. A man walks into a room, I have no idea. You know, it depends on how many other alpha men are in the room. Like, men's hormones fluctuate more than women's.
Oh yeah, they have like their cycle like on a daily basis versus like ours is a monthly basis, right?
Well, they're daily, but what I'm saying is we walk into a room and we're not going to be affected by other alpha females or other alpha males as much. Like, no. Men will be. They walk into a room and they're always like, who's the most alpha? Am I the most alpha? Like, their hormones are shifting and changing based on their environment.
Whether they know,
are based on our cycle.
Right. Whether they know it or not.
Whether they know it or not. They're more emotional. They're the male brain, another book I'll throw out there. Men, when they are born, are more emotionally wired than women, but we culture them out of it.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I have 2 boys, and I absolutely saw that. Okay, let's keep moving, because I think we could, I mean, this was a great question to start off with, though, because I think, again, it kind of wraps up episode 1A through 1D and brings us into this episode. But we're an hour in. All right, so keep walking through your next section, the male dominance as a choice.
All right, let's see. Oh yeah, male dominance as a choice, not a law of nature. If men were biologically destined to lead, then history wouldn't be littered with examples of women leading just as effectively, if not better, when given the chance. And let's be real, if natural leaders were truly decided by biology, we'd have fewer dictators and fewer financial collapses. But hey, it's just me.
Yeah. Go ahead and read the question too.
Oh, question. Yes, for sure. Do you think the whole natural order argument is just an excuse to keep certain power structures in place?
This is where I wrote down that it's a thought-stopping argument or a cliche. I should have pulled up exactly what the definition of that is. Let me do that really quick.
Oh, FYI, my iPad is probably going to die in like a few minutes or 10 minutes maybe. It's at like 30%. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, we have so much more to cover.
I know.
Okay, so a stop thought cliche basically is like, you know, let's see, Mia's not coming up here. Somebody, you know, somebody will say like, you know, they're talking about their bad day, and especially if you're in the South, they'll be like, but God is good. God's going to work this out, right? So they don't want to keep hearing about your bad day and actually have to offer you witness and support and maybe help you figure out some actual actionable things to do about, or like, I'll pray for you. That's another stop thought cliche, right?
Yeah.
Like, they basically want to stop the argument, potentially if it's an argument, or from becoming an argument, and just be able to like, I did my part, I pray for you, goodbye, right? Like, they don't want to actually take action. They don't actually want to think. So I would say people throwing out there that it's natural order is a stop thought cliche, a stop thought argument. The other thing I said is, well, and again, they do that unconsciously because no one has asked them, well, do you have any proof? Is there any DNA that we can point to that says, okay, this is universally in the human genome and expressed throughout the entire human population? Do we have that? No.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Why were so many laws written to silence women if they weren't supposed to be leading? Like, why is so much of the Bible talking about women being silent? If that was natural for them, then why were laws having to be written? Because the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. We don't have to write a law about that. There's gravity. We don't have to write the law about that. It just happens. So if it's natural order, then why are there laws that have to try to establish that it's natural order, right? So they've probably never thought about it because, again, they're just looking at the world and saying, like, you know, people are coming to me all the time, patriarchy's not real, because they don't do the work to see it, right? And they, you know, Jordan Peterson, I keep using him in all my videos. You know, he's pointing out how much men are suffering, so therefore YouTube, I just read YouTube. So therefore patriarchy doesn't exist because men are suffering, instead of understanding that men are suffering because patriarchy exists, and that's a symptom of patriarchy affecting them, because it affects everybody, and we're just now seeing how much it affects men, and it does affect the elite.
Right, it's a vicious cycle. Like, it's pretty much them shooting themselves in the foot. What it seems like to me. Yeah. And it's also goes back to the whole, like, even just Adam and Eve thing of, like, Eve being the one that you know, like, I feel like kind of how you were saying earlier, like, women were seen as devious or the bad ones always, because it's been like that for people since time immemorial.
I'm going to correct there. No, since patriarchy. So only 6,000 years.
Right. Well, that what they think is time immemorial, like, to people, you know what I mean?
Yes, from what they think time immortal is. But that's where you can point to the stories of Inanna. You know, she does talk about that a little bit in this book, I think. And I do have another book on Inanna. And say, if women were never revered, then how does the story of Inanna happen? And most people haven't heard of the story. So then you're going to have to explain the story and go prove it to them, probably. But, you know, why did we have, like, ISIS? You know, not ISIS in the terrorist organization, but ISIS the goddess in Egypt. Why was there goddess names in the Bible? And why did they have to put down the goddess cults, the fertility cults? Where did those come from? Like, but you read that stuff as a Christian, and because your awareness isn't open to questioning that, you just, oh my God, yes, I'm so glad that they put down the feminine consciousness, right? Like, I wouldn't have had that language back then, but because God,
like, oh, good guys, bad guys kind of thing. That's like kind of their mindset.
Yes, you know, God is good. God's a male. Female worship is witchy. It's the devil. It's not what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And we're also taking our lens. So now the Bible writers, you know, they were either at the end of patriarchy being established, or maybe about 15 to 2,000 years of patriarchy already established by the time they start writing. So they still have traces of the non-patriarchy in them. We are now 4,000 years past that. We don't have traces of pre-patriarchy in us. So we're looking at our present day lens and looking back at history and putting that lens on history and making it even more patriarchy than it was. And then fast forward, like, you just keep doing that. Like you said, it's a vicious cycle that people, you know, aren't, you know, even the first couple feminist waves didn't get this book, because this book was written in 1986. I think the first 2 or almost 3 feminist waves had already happened by then. And so they're looking at their feminist movement still through a patriarchal lens.
Oh, so even like Gloria Steinem still kind of had that lens, you think?
I don't know her name. You know so many more names than I remember. Again, I have not studied the feminist movement. That's another thing I am in the works of deconstructing, because of all my training from the evangelical and even Western society. So people are blaming the evangelical world, but it's patriarchy disguised as a religious movement.
Okay.
So we have to remember that. That's why I keep going back to deconstruct patriarchy, not just faith, not just these religions, because these religions were co-opted by the patriarchy so they could hide more. And I do think of patriarchy as a person, a body, it's a system. That's what we need to blame, so that we can stop blaming the actual people that are blinded and don't know. Especially the higher you go up in patriarchy, the less likely you are to see the effects of it on you. And to understand, and also for us looking at them down here, if we don't know this stuff, then we're not gonna see how patriarchy affects them, right? So it's a double-edged sword. So we're blaming these upper echelon elite people without understanding that they're also affected by it. You know, yes, they are causing this stuff, but it's because they're enslaved to patriarchy.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. So Anyways.
I like to dissect.
Next one. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So a lot to dissect. A lot. I
know that these are so meaty, and that's why I'm like, listen and re-listen to these because it will help. So we've talked a lot about Aristotle and Plato, but let's keep going about him.
Okay. So the ancient duo that helped cement misogyny as intellectualism, Aristotle literally called women deformed men and argued that we should always be submissive. Plato wasn't much better, and yet people still treat these guys like gods of philosophy. Reese Witherspoon's Elle Woods once said, "No offense to Aristotle, but I believe the law is not free from passion." And well, I'd like to say full offense to Aristotle. That man walked so patriarchy can run. So question is, how do you think these outdated philosophies still shape modern gender roles today?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about them already and how they do that.
Right.
They never stopped. That's the thing, is they never stopped affecting us. And some other things to remember when we're talking about women as a second sex is they were deformed men without the penis. And what Jesus was talking about with equality, I always want to pull this out for people, is that he wasn't saying that women and men both would get into heaven. He was saying he would make women how he is, which is male. Mm-hmm. So he was going to complete their development process to make them into men. So the way Bart Ehrman, that historical historian of the Bible, talks about this is they were actually believed to be two different orders.
Okay.
Not two different versions of the same species, but completely two different orders.
Okay.
Right? Different. Completely different than how we see it today, but you have to understand that, again, this got built into the philosophy because the philosophy was then taken into the medical fields and into the science fields that people have built on for the last 2,000 years.
Are you talking about order as in like lions and tigers versus house cats? Like that kind of order?
No, I think more of this order. I should do this, right? So they're still the same species, but it's like Homo sapiens versus Neanderthals, or Homo, whatever the other version of homos are. Sorry, that sounds weird.
Homunculuses,
right? Like chimpanzees and bonobos, right? Like you could still probably procreate with the two of them, but it's going to be a totally different order. Like, right, they're two different orders. So men were the like shining golden, beacon of the finality of what, like, if you, like, there's one of these guys that says, if you aren't a very good man or you don't reach your upper echelon or whatever, you're going to be reincarnated as a woman, right? So it's a step down. It's kind of like the caste system is how I think of it, right?
Okay.
So, women just didn't complete their development, and two men, they were incomplete men. It's how they say we were the deviants. Something happened in utero. So, like, you think about that, like, Jesus literally probably thought heaven would be full of all men. And I tell people, run with that wherever you want to go. So that you have to remember when you're looking at anything in our modern day and age, anything, genders especially, that is the foundation of what we're looking at, is Aristotle, Plato, Socrates thinking that women are the second sex. So there was another great article I just read on Substack about the trad wife movement. And again, the feminists, from what I can understand, and I don't know if it's so important for whatever they're trying to do, the actual lived experience of what women are experiencing is, instead of women becoming their own norm through feminism, again, remember, we're trying to now be the deviant that equals the norm. It's never going to happen, right? But we keep trying. So instead of laying down all of the unpaid labor that we were already doing, we now picked up trying to work and make money for the GDP.
Yeah, no.
Right? Where men are still only doing this, but now we're doing both, and now we're exhausted. No wonder so many of us would be like, I'd go back to the trad wife days easily, right?
Right, but now we're having these men who they want a trad wife who also is not a trad wife. They want someone who also wants a dual income household, but at the same time, like, they get to go to work and they come home versus like we go to work and come home and then do everything else, cook, clean, do the laundry. If you have kids, take care of the kids. Well, again, they just get to go to work and come home. I don't understand where that mindset came from. I mean, I guess I do, but at the same time, it's annoying. It's frustrating.
I think it's the little boy mindset. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, so I haven't processed this. But when you said that, oh my gosh, that was my experience. My ex wanted me to stay home, take care of him, take care of the kids, have an immaculate house, and bring home $250,000 net. That was yearly. That was his literal words to me. I want you to be the 1950s wife, but also bring home $250 net a year.
Absolutely not.
And he wasn't joking. I thought he was joking for most of my dating career. And then I learned, he was not dating to him. He was not joking. He wanted both of those because the first time he saw me, I was wearing a button-down polo shirt that I got from Ross and fake pearls. And he thought I was a trust fund baby. So this is why he went after me, because he thought he was going to get taken care of.
Wow.
And I think that's what a lot of these men are. I think they're grown baby men, unfortunately, because women, let's be honest, women, and I heard somebody else say this, women, mothers of sons are women who cater to their men, to their sons, and make their sons man boys.
Right. They're the number one priority. Even if they do have daughters, I've witnessed it.
Right. And that's patriarchy again, right? Because we prize the man as the norm. So we're going to put our sons above our daughters and that's, again, you asked me the question, like, how is it that women put each other down now? She gets into that in this book. That's one of the later steps where men have now trained women so well to be within patriarchy, to be submissive, to cater to the man. Women now do it to themselves and they do it to each other. So they don't even oftentimes have to raise a finger. All they have to do is give you the eye. We know what that, my ex would hit me under the table when I said something out of line. Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I would not tolerate that from my husband. If anything, like, I'm the one that tells him what to do, and I'm the one. Like, there would be no way. Absolutely fucking not. Yeah. Sorry, you might have to like get some duck sounds and just kind of go back and
they don't. I mean, my other YouTubers cuss all the time. Okay, because I definitely want to get to a user's question or a viewer's question, but let's see. I think that was basically all I wanted to say about that one. So let's get on to the last question really quick, and then that one other question, and then I guess we probably won't get to talk. No, we have to talk about the Save Act. If you fall off, I'll talk about the rest of that.
Okay.
Okay. So your last little part here, the modern impact. Are we still stuck in these old beliefs?
Oh yeah. So we've progressed, sure, but let's not pretend the belief that men are natural leaders isn't still deeply embedded in our society. We see it in politics, business, and even relationships. Women who take charge are called bossy or too emotional, while men doing the exact same thing are seen as powerful. Question is, where do you think we still see these outdated beliefs affecting women's lives today besides Brett Kavanaugh?
Yeah. So that is a perfect lead in to our next episode on Friday. It drops like about 7:45, I think is what 7:45 Central Morning AM time. So tune in, because I take those 10 steps from episode 1B, or the full episode of 1, and I bring them forward to today and give you real examples. I gave you a few. They are not, a cohesive, or what's the word I'm looking for? And include like a total, like, this is not the whole list, but I gave you a few examples of the higher view from, the social order. So like number one, I can tell you off the bat, is about learning to control the woman's womb, so that eventually they could learn that patriarchy had the right to control other people, i.e. slavery, right? Which happens about step 3. But that is the start of patriarchy. Learning to control another person through their body part set the stage for everything else.
Right.
So where do you where can you make a parallel that just happened in 2022 to women in this country that would relate to that one?
2022. I mean, yeah, that's when Roe got overturned. And then you just said something and it reminded me of something. I can't remember.
You got to take pen and paper with you all the time. So you'd be like, write that thought down.
I know. And IT that's supposed to be help with memory and focus. It's not working.
But we're also both ADHD and we're talking all over the place, right? Like I'm trying to keep us in line.
You said something right before I said that, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Go ahead and say what you were
I was just gonna say episode 3 that comes out on Friday will take you through each of those 10 steps and give you examples. A lot of them overlap. There's many, many more. So I'm asking people in the comment section to show, like, again, I want more people to have this education so more of us can develop this language and talk to each other, because the more of us that talk with this language and this understanding of what I'm preaching essentially, then this is how movements happen. This is how I think, and I'm sure there's other people doing what I'm doing with this book. There's actually a whole organization that I need to get in contact with that has devoted their organization to her work. So I need to get in touch with them. But the more that we're in this together, the more we'll be able to like feed off of each other and do that collaboration, that hero and journey, collaborate, communicate. Oh my God, why can I not remember all these other C's? So yeah, so watch, this is a plug. If you haven't watched the first 2 episodes, go back and watch those. There's a playlist, season 1, Foundations of Patriarchy, Foundations of Deconstructing Patriarchy, History and Myth, because it's all of those. And then watch, hit the little bell on YouTube, because then it'll alert you to when the episode 3 comes out. And you can watch that and get, 15 minutes of that.
I think I remember what I was going to say. I think, like, when it comes to like the overturning of Roe versus Wade, like they've been trying to do, like Republicans have been trying to do this forever, ever since, even before, I can't, it's hard to word things when my brain goes faster than my mouth can keep up. But I mean, it's rooted in racism, pretty much, is like the whole problem. Like, that's pretty much the beginning. They were trying to find a divisive issue on how to divide, the masses, and they couldn't come up with anything except for, this. They think, we can't divide people on segregation and racism anymore, so we're going to use the abortion issue. And that just jumpstarts this whole ridiculous pro-life movement, which is, it's not pro-life, it's pro-birth.
Yeah, it's pro-natal is what I think they call it. So I'm just checking. So in the comment or in the description for this episode, I do have a lot, because I wanted to talk about that, and I don't think we're going to get to it tonight. Well, I actually
definitely get to it next time.
I actually do need to get to it, but the episode, believe it or not, it's called Pro-Life, and he does talk about that. So, and then I have a couple other links that are talking about that as well, because racism, pro-life, and the Christian nationalist movement are all the same thing, y'all. They just are taking, that's the Overton window that I wanted to talk about too, where, the Overton window is basically, what is the zeitgeist? What is the social comfortable, society comfortable talking about? So we talk about within that window, and then we keep pushing that window larger so that they don't realize they're talking about more and more extreme things, where, we're talking about all of a sudden off-gassing people. I don't know if I can say the other word on here, but we're talking about saying people and that being just natural, or we're talking about electing an official who's been convicted felon. Like, that's just natural. Like, why is that a big deal? Right. So that's what the Overton window effect is.
Okay.
Now I lost my train of thought. No. So the Believe It or Not podcast goes into exactly what you were talking about, of how, again, I have to go back further though, because again, number 1 step of patriarchy was to learn to control a woman's womb. So it's not surprising to me. And if I think about this real quickly, because, number 1, controlling a woman's womb. Number 2, setting the family as the patriarchal family is the foundation of the state, which is, I didn't even pull that out. I know I'm freezing, but you can still hear me, right? Number 2, foundation of the fucking state. That just hit me. What are they trying to do? 1 man, 1 woman. Project 25 is saying that that's the foundation of a marriage, which is the foundation of a state. So we might be, that actually gets me excited. We might be at the fucking tail end of this thing, because, usually when something starts to break down, you start to see all these steps that it took go in reverse order. Right. So slavery, racism, They can't go after that anymore. So they're going after the family, and then they're going after the womb. So we're going in reverse order. But of course, that's the order that we had to go in order to get our freedoms too, right? We got slavery taken away first. Then we finally got the women's right to vote. Then we finally got the women's right to have autonomy over her own body. Kind of.
Right.
I've learned more about Roe versus Wade. Again, we don't have time. Didn't actually go far enough. It wasn't actually what we thought it was. So that's actually also how they got it taken away, because
right.
That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's why this is important. This is so important, because you saw me just now make that connection, because I'm in this. I'm learning it. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, for sure. I need to read that book. I need to find it on Libby. If it's not on Libby,
it's
Audible.
It was free on Audible. I don't know if it still is.
I
don't know how you would listen to this book and not have it in front of you, because it is like, I read a paragraph and I have to go back and reread it like 3 or 4 times, because she's a historian, and she's also getting into anthropology, sociology, and they're not topics that I studied in past, whenever we had them in high school. And so it's very meaty, and I think it's also the way she writes. It's not as straightforward as I think it could be. So that's why I'm doing the work I'm doing. So I'm trying to pull out her information, but then I'm also combining it with other people's, The Mysteries of the Dark Moon we haven't even talked about, but that's a phenomenal book. Sex at Dawn is another book I use. Untrue, like, I'm pulling all this information I've read, so it's not just her book, and I'm synthesizing it together to help us see, where this is showing up in our society, and where we, like, because again, this was written in 86, and some of these other books I'm mentioning were written much more modern, but they don't have this book, but they're still helping to prove this book. Does that make sense?
Yes. Side note, I do wish I could cancel my Audible subscription, but I have so many books on there that I've bought, and if I cancel it, I will lose all of them. So that is one of those things that Jeff Bezos owns that I'm still paying for. I'm sorry.
I know. I still use Amazon. I still use Audible. I mean, there's only things like...
There's only so much you can...
Here's the thing. There are more people that aren't on, I would say, our consciousness level that are willing to actually ban those things.
They'll feed you in 5 minutes.
So us banning those things isn't going to impact them. It's going to impact us more than it is them.
I mean, we can do our part, little by little. If we can just have a self-sustaining community where we're all like helping grow, thrive, that's the best way. Support small businesses, get the word out, share small businesses that having a self-sustaining community would be the best thing. And people like go to Costco together and like split stuff. That'd be the best thing, honestly. Like, there's so much stuff there. Like, if you just have a 2 person household, like me and my husband, we don't want children. We're never gonna have children. It's just us. But we have a Costco membership. We love Costco. We love the fact that they still have their DEI practices implemented, and that's really important. And so, but we can get non-perishable things there easily. We don't mind spending a bunch of money, or not a bunch of money, but money on that, and then like stocking it up. But when it comes to like stuff like milk and frozen or not frozen vegetables, but any like produce, anything that's going to go bad fast, like it's better to like go together and then split it.
Yeah, I'll go with you.
Yes, anytime. Let me know.
That could send me off of a rabbit hole, whatever trail there, because there is a Substack article from this woman that wrote the SAVE Act. She had an author on who was talking about the myth of urban living or suburban living. And it was like, and it fit a huge piece of all the work I was doing. So that's another episode we should talk about. I should put it in probably season 3 at this point. But
okay,
because that's more of like, okay, now we know all this information. How can we actually start using it to make changes? Like, that's kind of where I want to be eventually with everybody is, like, that's what I was doing with my DJ that I've mentioned a couple times. I created this community called Movement Medicine, and it was this space where I wanted to experiment with community in a new way in order to see, how can we do this in a better way? But like what she's talking about in the myth of the urban, suburban world is so much bigger than what I was thinking, right? So we can definitely talk about that. Do you want to read your last little piece before your because my battery is also going to be going because I don't have it plugged in and I want to get to.
Cat's dinner time is 8:30.
You have 2 minutes. Go.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Blah, 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 blah.
So to wrap this up.
Get to, I think, did we get to where do we think we still see these outdated beliefs affecting women's lives today?
That's what I said. Tune in.
Oh, you did.
Friday. Episode 3 talks all about that. So that was a perfect question.
Oh, okay.
She didn't know, by the way. I did not seed her with that question. She came to me and I was like, oh.
Okay, so to wrap this up, the idea that male dominance is natural is just that, an idea, one that's been sold to us, taught to us, and enforced over generations. But here's the thing. If it were truly natural, we wouldn't have had to spend thousands of years brainwashing women into believing it. Mic drop.
Mic drop. Love it, love it, love it. So, okay, in case you drop off, I will take it from here. So we did have a user question I have to get to now that we're an hour and a half.
Oh, I need to know what it is really quick.
Why did matriarchal societies feel the need to create patriarchy, and what need was it meeting? So I think she's the one, she sent me a little chat. So if you caught up to us, thank you for this. It was not a stupid question. There are no stupid questions. This is a whole new language we're learning, y'all. Learning to use our brain in a different way than we have ever thought before. So if you watched episode 1, either one, the full one or broken down into 4, I talked about how we co-created patriarchy together. So I didn't go into the full story of that because, again, I'm trying to keep these under 5 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
But what they think was happening, again, this is all speculation based off of what we can piece together and then synthesize through our understanding of, looking at more modern societies. But what we think happened was we were living in more matrilineal or matrifocal societies, not matriarchy, because that would just be the reverse power struggle of women over men. Matrilineal simply meant more partnership society. So the family line passed through the females, and I mentioned in that first episode why that was important evolutionary for the male ego specifically, to keep it in check, y'all. And the rest of the responsibilities of the civil and more family were partnership based on what people were skilled at, right? Which is how things should be, not based on your gender. So
what elephant, that's how they live. That's their society.
The more partnership society, more equality. Yeah. So what we think happened is over the course of the start of patriarchy, as the state got established through the one male, one female family line, they were having, this is my own interpretation, so take it for what you want, but they were having so many fucking babies that they couldn't be in charge anymore. So it got stripped out of them. They had to hand that responsibility. So sorry, I have to back up. They, women would have been the tribal leaders essentially that were going to other tribes to negotiate for other women, because women were the bottleneck of creating more babies in the tribe, right? So they would go to other tribes, negotiate. I'm trying to pull this all together for you. It's a lot of information. They would negotiate, for more women. Eventually, because they were so busy having babies, again, that's my own thought. They don't know why. I don't think she mentions why. They don't know, and she admits that in the book. So this is Holli's thought. But they were so busy having babies that they couldn't go to the other tribe. So men started to take on those responsibilities. And now the male ego is not checked. And fast forward 6,000 years and we see what we see. So they did not know. Nobody knew. Nobody at the beginning of all of this knew what would become of this. They didn't know that it would be, because again, probably they'd never seen in their own little world. Because you have to remember, tribes were probably no more than, at most at that time, 50 to 100 people.
Yeah.
I forget the number, but there's a number where your brain can't really recognize more than that number of people. It can't keep track of more than 25 people before it starts to get overwhelmed, right? So it's not very big. So our social media world is way too much for our brain, which is still not that evolved, to be honest.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's another reason we're getting overwhelmed in our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn stage, yada, yada, yada. So you have to remember, they lived in these small tribal communities, and people are like, oh, they were sleeping with it. Yeah, like they grew up with each other. So they shared their husbands, they shared their brothers, they shared everybody. And everybody was everybody was nursing everybody else's babies. This actually helps the immune system of the tribe too. So there was all these evolutionary reasons that this partnership society was better for human evolution. And it kept the male ego in check, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, like, you're not running into that many other tribes back then. So they don't know that, there might be like, it just like we don't know, like Aristotle, let's say that Aristotle and Plato didn't know that partnership societies were a thing. Partnership societies didn't know if there was anything else other than that. That's all they knew. Right. So they didn't have the foresight to know that their structure of society helped keep the male ego in check. There
that makes sense.
all these checks and balances within that type of society to keep everyone's ego in check. I don't want to just throw men under the bus, but we do see that when men are not checked by women, their egos go out of control and they're ruining this planet and ruining life.
Right, they are. Well, I am so sorry, Holly. I've got to go. This little bugger not stop bothering me because he's hungry.
All right. Thank you, Paige. Will we be able to have you back next week to help with this? This was fun. I had more fun this week.
Yay. Good. Me too. Okay. All right. I'll connect with you later, Holly. Have a good night.
Thanks, Paige. All right. For everybody else, we'll go ahead. Let me see what happens when she drops off. Okay. I think we're fine. Why I think things were so confusing and how, sorry, I'm just reading some alerts here. How I think it happened and how I got it wrong and what I've learned. And okay, I think this might be, let's just see here. Is it still showing? Okay, it still says it's showing. So anyway, so go watch that latest video under Deconstructing Patriarchy is the YouTube station. I'm getting tired, y'all. The playlist is Take Action 2025 and the last video, the update number 2. So please watch that one. It's got a lot of pertinent information in it for the SAVE Act. I'm not saying it's not still something to pay attention to, but it's not as urgent right now, I would say, as all of the executive orders that Trump is putting into place and how he's dismissing that he needs to listen to the judicial branch. So if you remember your government class, we had 3 branches, right? We had the judicial, the executive, and then the House and the Congress, right? And those 3 were meant to be balanced by each other so that no one branch had too much power to become a king, because that's what we were trying to move away from. A king, a fascist, any of those words that you want to use. They were trying to stop us from doing that. So if the executive branch doesn't want to pay attention to the judicial branch, that's an issue. And if you go, again, I'll have it in this one as well at some point, hopefully tonight if I have energy, 5-call app. Just go into your app store, type 5-number call. And the first thing to do on that one is to call your representative, your Senate, even your state. I don't know why we would want to call the state. So somebody educate me on why we would want to call the state governor about this as well. Does the governor, I'm having to relearn everything about our government. Does the governor of a state have any sway on an impeachment or calling for investigation? I don't recall that they do. I thought it was only the Congress that has that power. And it's only one of the 2 of them. So we all need to re-educate ourselves, basically. Go to ACLU. I took a course today on Texas state legislator and learned a lot because I'm not a Texan from birth. And now I need to go to ACLU and see if there's one for the federal so I can recall. I used to be so into this stuff, y'all. In high school, I went for 1 week to DC to be in a mock Congress. And I don't remember anything. I remember it being really confusing and overwhelming. And even being in the process, I still didn't really get it. So I don't feel so bad. And so don't feel so bad if you're feeling confused. And if you get things wrong, don't feel bad. Like I got things majorly wrong. And here I am, like people are now finding me because of the SAVE Act and not the work I'm actually doing. But the bigger picture that I kept saying in all those SAVE Act updates is that we have to understand where this movement came from. And it came from, if you've been on with us, thank you so much for watching this long one. But we start, like Paige brought this up, we were talking about how the Christian movement didn't just start at 1950s with the racist versus pro-life issue. That's not where it started. It actually started way back when with Constantine, when he decided to start making, and it wasn't an overnight process, like anything is never an overnight process, but he adopted Christianity as the main religion, but he was still, had a foot in each camp where he was still a pantheon type guy and a Christian guy. There's so much history I can't go into, but just know Christian nationalism started back in the 300s. 312 is when he, saw a vision from Christ. 323, I think, is when the Council of Nicene happened. And if you listen to anything, like I'm listening to Sex in the Middle Ages through their great courses, and how manipulative the Catholic Church was. It was not about the hippy dippy version of Jesus, y'all. It was about the power and control version that Constantine picked up, and it just trickles down into modern day life. I also watched The Mind Shift. If you haven't, Brandon over there, fabulous deconstructionist. He did something on, I'll have to get it now. Let's see. Okay, I'm not going to take time to go get it right now, but I'll try to remember to put it in the comments below. He did one on a woman who was one of the last philosophical people, which I didn't even know there was a woman philosopher, because she was not in The Creation of the Feminine Consciousness, which is the second book to this. So it was complete. I think her name started with an N. No, Hypatia. That's it. Hypatia. I remember it. Yeah. So go look that up. Mind Shift, Hypatia. It was his Thursday episode last week. And you see the Christian Catholic Church showing up and how it was all about power and control. So the Christian Church has always, since its inception, really, not since, especially Jesus's day, but since its inception in 312 on, as it got embedded into politics, has always been embedded into politics. That is what the founding fathers, and I always say mothers, tried to get out. They tried to remove the embedment of religion into politics. They tried to remove it. And here we are again. So fast forward to 1950s. There was all these laws coming out against being able to have their private schools, which ended up being racist schools, because they could basically not allow anybody besides white people into their schools. The government came out and said, you're going to lose your nonprofit status if you don't start allowing other people in, right? Other colors in. So Jerry Falwell, you'll learn all of this in the videos if you listen to Believe It or Not or Christy Burke, I have their links below, said, hey, we're not going to win the moral majority on racism anymore. It's that Overton window has closed on that one. So we're going to go back after women, which is the number one step of creating patriarchy. Slavery was number 3. Families was number 2. Number 1, right? And in the last 70 years, what have we seen? All the civil rights movements take away their right to control that. Then you had the women. So that was number 1, really. And then you've had all this attack on family not being, or marriage not being for anything else but one woman and one man. So the top 3 ideologies of patriarchy are being attacked right now, right? And it doesn't like it. Patriarchy is a living, breathing entity. It doesn't like it. So it is fighting back tooth and nail right now to make sure that these 3 foundations of patriarchy stay in place so the rest of patriarchy doesn't crumble. Patriarchy is fighting for its life right now. That's the good news. We have to remember that. All right? So Christian nationalism saw that they couldn't win on the racism. They turned to family and abortion. And that's where they have slowly built that Overton window from here to here, to be more extreme. So I'm going to put the link to that too. Christy Burke just did an episode on the Overton window today. That's why I keep using that term. phenomenal, maybe it was yesterday, but phenomenal episode that she did. Phenomenal. Go listen to it, then come back and do your somatic exercise, because I was really tense by the end of listening to that. But if we don't understand how they take these small steps to start to acclimate you to be more comfortable with another small step in that direction, another small step, and another small step, then we won't take action on the step way back here. And we're going to get over here and be like, oh, shit, we should have taken action. And that's what I keep saying. I would rather be wrong about taking an action way down here than being wrong and letting it get all the way over here and Roe versus Wade getting overturned. And we don't get to go further with women's reproductive justice. So that explains that a little bit more and why it's so important that we take steps. So I'm not going to talk about white women as pawn tonight. I don't have the energy to go into that one. I think that's going to it's going to be, I've inserted it into our season 1 as our last. So I'm going to talk, not born as a evangelical Christian. And then number 12 episode will be about my deconversion from self-help and the toxic world that has become and is become. And really it's because it's just another offshoot of Christianity, which was the first self-help, patriarchy, capitalism sold as Christianity, patriarchy realized it couldn't stay there. So then it went into self-help. It's just like, it's the snail. I don't want to use a feminine. The snake is a feminine like fertility symbol, so I don't want to use the snake. But patriarchy has really moved its way through all of our culture. So that's number 12. 13 will be kind of wrapping it up and like, what can we do with the Bible and mythology now that we know everything through all of these books that I'm mentioning, synthesizing it for you. And number 14, I think, will be about white woman as pawn, which is actually one of her chapters. I don't think it's actually white woman. I think it's woman as, what is it? Let's see. I know she uses that term in here, and it's really that this elite woman has gotten used by all these different sides. And so until the elite woman realize how much she's been used as a pawn by all these different sides, including the, elite white male, she's not going to wake up. So that's the overall concept of it. Let me see. I think the halftime we've already talked about. So there's that. Definitely there's so much going on, so much. I know there's so many people to watch. So thank you for watching. If you didn't see, again, go watch. There's so many links. I'm going to keep you busy up until the next, century, basically. And just all my links to watch all these different things. But if there's like 2 or 3 top ones I would want you to watch after this video is the recap of the update from Save Act number 2 that I made, Christy Burke's video on Overton, and then going to the playlist for our season 1 foundations of Deconstructing Patriarchy, History, and Myth, and making sure that you're watching the first 2 episodes in full before you watch episode 3, because episode 3 will not make as much sense if you have not watched those 3. So those would be my 3 top ones. Save Act update number 2, Christy Burke, Overton, and this one. There's tons of other links to go watch more in there. But just keep with it. Keep watching more stuff like this. Keep coming back to this channel. I'll have more links that supports the work that we're doing here. But again, the more that you listen to this work, the more likely I am to get monetized. No, for real. I have to get 1,000 subscribers. I think tonight we hit 500, y'all. So I'm halfway. I'm 499 as of right now. I'm halfway freaking there to the subscriber count. But I have to be at 4,000 watch hours, and I'm at like 300 right now. So please, for me, selfishly, keep watching these videos. But no, for you, honestly, I will figure out how to keep making this material. I'm not making money off of anything right now. I don't have any income. I am self-supported right now, but I am determined. I am passionate. I know that this consciousness needs to be added and people need to get it. And the more you watch these videos on repeat, hopefully, the more it will make more and more sense. You saw that tonight as you were watching Paige. It's like I kind of got to do basically a personal coaching session with her, or a personal teaching session. that's what these sessions are meant for. And they're bite-sized chunks, 15, 16, 18 minutes. I'm like trying to make them as succinct as possible for you. So I love hearing from you all. Like the first few questions have poured in. Thank you. There are no dumb questions. They're all welcome here. Again, this is a new language, a new way to think, a new way to see the society, a new way to move. How we move is how we think, and how we think is how we move. So it's really important. When I was teaching movement medicine, I would help people get out of the like very horizontal or vertical plane and get into moving their bodies in totally different ways, because that affects the brain patterning in our brain. It's all connected. Oh my God, I could keep going on. But that's enough for me. I hope you had a pen and paper nearby. If not, go back and listen again. Oh my gosh, an hour and 45 minutes, an hour and 50 minutes later. We're going to finish now. So much love. Stay tuned for Friday's episode and meet us here again, hopefully live next time, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If there's a better time, once I hit 500, I can actually do, I think, a survey. So if that survey pops up, answer to let me know what a better time is. Like Saturday morning, I actually had more people. I just didn't want to, like Saturday mornings are hard. Let's just be honest. Wednesday nights felt like it was a